Hello, hello. How are you guys doing today? How's it going, everybody? Um, Here, I'll flash this a little bit quicker. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Starting in 1 minute or so. How's everybody doing? Hope y'all are having a fantastic Thursday. If you saw our message, or if you saw my message in um, the Discord channel, our Duat residency channel in the Metakey Discord, our artist breakdown got switched to today, and our artist talk tomorrow is happening. With Fractillions, excuse me. With Fractillions, I hope I'm getting the name right. Since they're doing a collective type thing with the wearables, so that's pretty exciting, and I think everybody should be. I'm gonna erase this a little bit, I think a lot of it, if you're on the fence to apply to something like that, do it. You won't lose anything. Your name will actually just get put out there. More people might recognize your work in the future. But yeah, um, I'll be back in a minute or so, and we'll get going with our little artist artwork breakdown. Um, I I listened to the one I did last time, and I think for this one I'm gonna do a breakdown of multiple works instead of focusing on one, since this is a stream format, and I think it will allow me to talk about the same points even a little bit easier, because we're gonna have different examples that I can use, right? And looking at different pieces will make your brain think of different themes instead of just being nailed to one. Um, but yeah, I'll go on. I'll mute myself for a little bit, and we'll start in. Let's see, what time is it? It's 10:21. We'll start in like 2 minutes. See if any more people trickle in. But yeah, um, 2 minutes. Hell yeah. Alright, that was just the perfect song ending right there to get started. But yeah, hello, welcome everybody. Um, and we'll get going. We're gonna get going with our artwork breakdown. I'm gonna have to lower the volume on my own music though. God damn, that is loud. Holy shit, sir. Here, let me boost it on here so y'all have some nice music tracks. Hey, it's Homer Simpson, stoned as fuck driving. Don't drive while stoned. Don't do it. But yeah, so um, we're gonna be looking at the work of Carlos Marcial. I hope I pronounced the last name correctly. or I'm not butchering it too bad. Um, I personally first became aware of the work of Carlos when somebody campaigned my We Enter 2021 painting to his profile picture, because I had put the same black, like sort of a black slit over one of my character's eyes, and ever since then I followed him on Twitter. So I'll show you his Twitter right now. I recommend you hit that follow for him. Really great artist, and you will see why very soon. Um, Here, let's do this. I remember this time. We haven't looked at any art yet. We got the starting soon thing out, but yeah. Um, and so this is his Twitter, Carlos Marcial, T at the end. I don't know. Is that a T at the end? That is a T. Um, but yeah, and if you want to get in contact with me also, this is my username right here. And if you want to get in contact with him, again, just hit that follow button. He's pretty responsive to his to Twitter. Actually, it's pretty fun. Um, but anyways, now let's go look at some fucking art. Yo, I'm excited for this. I'm very excited for you guys to look at his work. Honestly, it's you'll see soon. If you see these little two tabs right here, if you can read them, yo, King Jesus, what's up? Welcome to the stream, my mans. Welcome to the stream. But I'll be referring to these two tabs up here real quick when we start looking at his work, and you'll see why I'm very fond of his work. But so, his main work is on Super Rare, right? You click right here. It takes you to this, and then if you want to see all his artworks, you click here. I'll just, if you have not seen, you just bottom of the page, view all artworks created by Carlos. You click on that, and it sorts it by newest, oldest, and then price wise. This doesn't concern us, right? And so we'll just get going here, right? And so I before I started the stream, I went ahead and skimmed through Carlos's work on Super Rare. He did mention that I think he's either minting also on Hicketnunk or will be collecting on Hicketnunk. I'm not too sure. And honestly, I haven't what do you call it? I haven't had the time to actually go hunting for his Hicketnunk profile collection. But yeah, so this is his work. And quickly, I'm actually gonna go to some of these, and so we're gonna start with Fiat is Violence series, because I think it's actually pretty fun. We'll go to number 6. I do not know what currency that is. That's the Chinese one. I also do not know what currency that is. I think that might be the English pound. I'm not too sure. And quickly I'll open up this right here. Is this the wheat pipe, huh? That's a joke. I'll explain it a little bit. That specific piece is actually fun. Let's see. Is it up there a little bit? It's in his Infinite series. That's actually cool. Also, I didn't notice this one. I think we might have skipped through it. Here, let me see. It's in. Where's the tank? Where's the fucking tank, man? Am I blind? I can't be blind. I'm not that blind, yo. Come on now. It's here. I am not fucking. Could have sworn he made a tank, yo. I'm not fucking. There we go. I didn't go up enough. But so far I've clicked on these. I actually am also curious to one of the Duchamp series. Um, we just have to quickly choose one. As you can see, he's done a lot of work, and it's actually a lot of it's very high quality work. Some of it's work that you can obviously tell he's doing for fun, and some of it is just it's actually genuinely very heavy on thematic themes, at least, and politics and such. But I'll go with let's go with this. All right, and so quickly. Um, go to the first one, right? And so fiat is violence, right? Um, pretty sure this is violence in French. Fiat is. So we'll quickly go to them. Google Translate. Um, fiat is violence. What? That's not what I fucking. Excuse me. Fiat is violent and. Huh. Well, I guess that's just Google Translate doing its thing. But anyways, and so quickly, we're gonna we're gonna look at the description right here, and so it says for fiat is violent. Yeah, at least that's how I read it. Fiat is violent. Knife number one. The term fiat derives from the Latin fiat, let it be done, used in the sense of an order, decree, resolution. We got a Wikipedia source, which is nice. Further reading if you want to dig deeper into the work. And so, money keeps our economies violently attached to central governments that can print more money as desired, effectively making their citizens instantly poor by decree. Most of the modern wars have been financed with fiat money, right? Most of the weapons and bullets are bought with fiat. HSBC loves money laundering. Um, that actually brought a little smile to my face. And I'll explain why. Well, he actually explains why. HSBC loves money laundering the fiat money of the Mexican and Colombian drug cartels, and when they get caught, they pay their fines with the same fiat money. Yes, fiat is violence. That's good for you. And so, obviously, this work and some of the other work we're going to look at is directly responding to our economical state worldwide, right? How every country essentially functions on the use of fiat, right? And so, at least to those listening, sir, excuse me? What the fuck? Super rare, what are you on, fam? Alright, hold on. Real quick. So fiat is just, our currency, right? I live in Canada at the moment, so it's the Canadian dollar. If you're in the UK, it's your English pound. Fiat money. What the? There we go. Right. There we go. Just something fucked with the link. It's money. Fiat money does not have intrinsic value and does not have use value. That's the important thing of fiat, right? That's one of the arguments to use that that cryptocurrency uses against fiat, and also the simple fact that right here they can print as much as desired. It's infinitely printed, right? I guarantee you every country has their government printers running right now. Maybe not some, but so this work is sort of accounting and commenting on that, right? It's certainly making the viewer aware of what fiat money is, but also I think the most important part of something like this is the focus on the use of money um, for violence, right? Either through money laundering of violent organizations or through the funding of violent actions or violent plans, and so first here it's the That's the English pound on a knife, right? You have Israel prepares to send tax troops to Gaza, Chancellor on the brink of the second bailout for banks, right? And so you have we're gonna get bigger here, immediately two articles, two headlines that make you aware of money being spent, right? Now, if you're unaware, um, tanks are not cheap, right? I have a friend of mine in the military, and he says they have to be sort of careful during some training, right? Because even you as a soldier training in the military, you can't fuck up too much because, that's money, If you're training to throw grenades, for example, you can't throw too many grenades because they're fucking expensive, right? And so immediately Israel prepares to send tanks. That immediately thinks the amount of funding that's needed, right? And then this right here, a bailout for the banks, right? Now, a bailout, from my understanding, if we're quick, or here, let's bailout definition. Let's not even listen to my definition. So, an act of giving financial assistance to a failing business or economy to save it from collapsing, right? And so this is the UK Chancellor giving banks a bailout so that the banks don't collapse in the UK, right? And that's indicated right here, again with the English pound, right? And so this sort of work, right? It's easily digestible by a viewer, right? By the common layman, somebody who's not really into politics or economics. All they have to do is understand what fiat money is, and the description of the work explains it, right? Personally, I think the work is extremely successful because not only does it send you down sort of a rabbit hole of research of your own, right? But also these right here. The Israel prepares to send tanks, right? And this right here. Well, these are sort of searchable events that you can search on and delve deeper into the work, right? Now, quickly, one of the things that I think Carlos's work utilizes, at least the fiat, is violent notion. So here, let me just combine the works. So essentially, from this work right here, so here comes Fiat and his Fiantes Violet series. I don't know if Carlos is himself aware of like this factor or this notion and critique being aware in his being present in his work, but if it's a new term, it's a far recent term that's sort of being theorized now, and it's, if you search it, it's called necrocapitalism. Capitalism. And so me personally as an artist, I would argue that you can make the argument that fiat money is also inherently somewhat necro capitalist, not narco capitalist. Necro means dead, narco is for the drugs. So if a narco-capitalist is a capitalist society run on drugs, necro-capitalism is a thing that's being, as you can see here, right, 2008, it's a very recent term. And quickly, here, if we quickly, yeah, oh my god, if we quickly look at the abstract of such paper, right? In this paper, I developed the concept. This is the writer, Benerji, SB Benerji. And so in this paper, I developed the concept of necrocapitalism, defined as a contemporary form of organizational accumulation that involves dispossession and subjugation of life to the power of death. I examine how different forms of power, institutional, material, right, and discursive. Even I personally don't know what that word means. But institutional, the banks, the financial institutions, right? They take part in this, right? Operate in the political economy and the violence and disposition that result. I describe some contemporary forms of the organizational accumulation that involve disposition and death and could therefore be described as a necro-capitalist practice. For example, the impact of the resource industry in developing countries and the privatization of war and military, right? Now, you hear me focus on the privatization of war and military because the privatization of war and military is inherently capitalistic personally, I think is a capitalistic sort of move, right? Your military is sort of privatized. You have private entities, like, capitalist companies developing for your military and such, And so I conclude, you know, so finishing, I conclude by discussing some possibilities of resistance and outlining directions for future research. Now, this does not concern me, right? My main concern is, hopefully, in the next 10 to 20 years, we'll see what a far more um, fleshed out definition of necrocapitalism. But reading through this, right, it falls in line exactly, and I mean exactly, with fiat is violent. I mean, we're looking at a fucking knife with fucking money on it, right? If it isn't for money printing or weapons production, it's for money laundering, right here, as it says, And so, um, I think people should be aware of this little fact. Personally, even though, again, right, copyrighted in 2008, deposited in I thought that's 2007. I was like, damn, it took a few months to. Never mind. But so I'll also drop this link right here in the Discord chat. For those who are curious, I'm gonna be tweeting it out on my Twitter after the stream too, because I'm curious to what people think. Because I mean, personally, I first became aware of the term of necrocapitalism through one of my university professors in art history classes, and she used it as a way of certain art evolving to comment on capitalistic aspects through war, the glorification of war, right? The glorification of pain and suffering. It's essentially the obvious term for it is war porn, right, and all that, where it's like the extreme glorification just of horrific acts of violence, right? And so, well, this work does not comment on it per se, right? If we move on to, for example, Fiat is violence number 6, 9mm gun, right? A Glock, for example. I think it's a Glock. I don't know. The message sort of becomes far more apparent, right? It's the guns, right? And they command far more money, also in real life, than a knife, And so, this happens to be the last work in the series, I believe. Except there's another one-off. Oh, so the description changes. So I'll read this one as well. The term fiat, we've read this. Fiat money keeps our economies only attached. Central government can print money is desired effectively making. Okay, we read that. All modern empires rely on fiat money. Yes, fiat is endless. Let's see. Oh, never mind. Right. So the original files in these are deleted, right? But so, I think this work is also far more effective because, we've heard the argument: is it the gun, or is it the person, right? Is it the gun or is it the shooter that hurts people? But it doesn't matter in a work like this. Isn't discussing that, right? It's discussing the means of production of such a violent weapon that now we're sitting discussing the loss of life and who's at fault. Is it the machine or the person, right? And this work aims to show you and make you aware of the money, right? The fiat money which we use to buy, your vegetables, right? Your food. You pay for your bills is the same money used to produce these weapons of just extreme suffering and also protection at some point, right? But also suffering, right? And in looking at our history, they've given way to far more suffering than protection at some times, right? And so the message in this work is far more apparent. Funny enough, personally, I think you notice that, and if we go back here and we scroll down, the backgrounds sort of disappear, right? Other than this, it's just either backdrop under a general infinite drop or a sky. But personally, I think what's cool, I don't know if Carlos himself was focusing on this and did it intentionally, right? But it's a known fact that the United States Army is the most funded army in the world, right? And given that fact, it's understandable that they have guns are moreover, and also just you have the nature of gun laws in the United States and such. And so, given the history of the United States Army, right, the use of guns in the United States itself, within the United States and outside the United States, right, one can argue, right, that the U.S. dollar, in a sense, can be responsible for a lot of deaths in the world. That's sort of, yeah, again, that's an argument that you can have. You need your data and stuff, but I bring that up to say that the work doesn't sort of need any article about, either U.S. bombs somewhere or the U.S. getting bailed out for some banking stuff, right? It's just black, right? And black is also a color used to um, symbolize death and mourning, right? And so you have that paired with a Glock covered in the U.S. dollar, which again, right, is they have the most funded military in the world, right? And so I think it's a pretty successful work as well. You can't beat it. You can't beat work like this. It's simple and it's effective, right? And again, this is different from something like this, right? Even though they're both covered with the U.S. dollar, these two works, they convey two completely different meanings and two different critiques of I would even argue two different systems, right? Because one, to me at least, this is talking about war, right, and the funding of war and such, and to me is internal, right? This is far more external, and this is far more internal. I don't know if it's just simple the difference of usually a normal gun that a person can buy, right? Anybody can, in theory, right? You can own this, just a normal gun, but you have to be sort of somebody. Either you're kinky, right? Which you're, I don't know if you're kinky, what you're doing with a fucking cop baton, but I mean, if you got the hat, I understand. No kink shaming here, but we're not talking about kinks in that matter, right? This is a far more political situation, and so, in a real life case, if somebody has handcuffs, a baton, and a cap like that, you understand what sort of job they have, and how that is an internal job and not an external job to the United States of America. I say that because army people ain't dressed like fucking cops outside the United States, right? You have army dress, and then that's just the internal dress of policing officers of the civilian population within the states, and so I didn't mean to click on that. Apologies. Yeah, and so looking at this, this is the 8th work in Fiat is Violence. And so this specific one, the one we're looking at, is for those listening only. Fiat is Violence dash Police State. In the work itself, there's handcuffs, a police baton, and a cop cap, a cop hat, if you will, with just black background. And in the reading, it says, in the description, apologies, it says, the 8th part of Fiat is Violence series was inspired by this quote: when police departments and sued for police brutality, that money should come from the unions and the pension funds rather than the taxpayers. Power of the purse: when you cut off the unlimited cash supply, police will begin to give a shit. Todd Hagopan. I personally do not know who this person is. Quickly, Lieutenant in Chief, Libertarian Party, I think, United States, Oklahoma. Cool. And so now, if you look at the hashtags, you'll see George Floyd in there, and so this is a work obviously directed towards one main event in the States, right? The death of George Floyd and the events that followed after. And it's a valid work to that critique, but to me, I read this work as a far more deeper reflection of just every sort of police police form and police state out there, right? In this weird sense, and from personal experience, hearing from friends, and even my own personal experience, right? It's sort of um, and this can be entirely subjective, right? I say this because it's again this is based on personal experiences, and you'll have a different experience than me, but in corrupt governments, right? The U.S. dollar is still king in a sense where the corruption is dealt with sometimes either in normal currency, but a lot of times it can be dealt with U.S. dollars. And for example, like if somebody's escaping, they'd rather escape with U.S. dollars from their corrupt third world countries than their country's fiat, right? And so, um, regardless of this happening in the States, right? Not every country has cops with batons, right? A lot of countries have their cops with guns now, right? But in the sense of tying the themes of corruption, right? The overall arcing corruption with day-to-day third world and second world and even first world policing, I think personally, is a valid sort of connection to make, right? Because, um, I mean, I have no problem saying, if corrupt cops get caught, anywhere in the world, right, and they try to get out, I guarantee you, in our current world, they're trying to get the U.S. dollar, just because it's the world reserve currency, right? It's recognized everywhere, and therefore it lends itself to be used by criminal organizations and non-criminal organizations, right? Like even through just conversion, sometimes in my own personal experience, right? Like how the U.S. dollar is so dominant as a world reserve currency. Sometimes my parents, while paying for my university education, um, had to deal with the U.S. dollar instead of directly sometimes directly dealing with the Canadian dollar, right? It's that powerful, and so it lends itself to be used and abused. And so to me, this work is while it is done for a very specific reason, and it's valid, and it's an extremely valid and a correct critique of the United States police force, right? It's also valid worldwide in countries where they have corrupt police, because again, uh, U.S. dollar is king worldwide for criminal and non-criminal stuff. So it just makes sense. At least in my eyes, looking at that work, it makes sense. And so you can't sort of neglect that fact at all, and so the next work, and if you've noticed here, a little bit of a theme that's happening is the U.S. of the U.S. dollar, right? And that sort of comes to, I mean, being honest, the U.S. has been one of the most vocal countries either going into war or funding countries that might go into war, or just military funding, right? They boast about their army, they boast about what they've done, right? The whole America's gonna give you freedom meme has been done, for for years, and so I think this work is sort of talking about that. But here we'll read into it. So this work follows by the title of "Here Comes Fiat," right? Edition 101. This is my first crypto art anniversary edition. Congratulations! Exactly 1 year ago. And so I was gonna be on the 11th of the 22nd month. No, we don't have 22 months in the year. And so on the 22nd of November 2019, Carlos tokenized his first artwork on Super Rare, and so this is him celebrating his work. And so in the description, he says, I wanted to celebrate this milestone by combining for the very first anniversary two of my most well-known digital art series, Infinite Rooms and Fias, is Violentum. This is the first time you hear it try to pronounce its actual correct name. I've been trying to say Fiat is violence because I'm trying to translate it. But even then, I'm trying to, maybe that might not be French. And so after that says, this has been one of the most interesting years of my life, and for that I want to thank all the community around this new emerging artistic movement. Love you all. And so First of all, congratulations, Carlos, on your success in the NFT space. It is well deserved. Your work is quite exceptional in the themes it utilizes, you know, and this is one of them. Now, there's a few things happening, right? There's a, I don't know if it's intentional or not, right? But the sort of comparison, right, or the sort of placement of just the notion of a $1, right, just $1 on a tank, right? To all listening, all of us know tanks don't cost fucking $1, right? They're fucking expensive as shit, you know. Like quickly, how much does a watch the cops show up at my fucking door and fucking just oh my god, yo, what the fuck? Sorry, I'm shocked right now because if you're looking at the screen, tanks, alright, M1 Abrams tanks cost, adjusting for inflation, $8.92 million. I think that's just unit cost per unit. Oh my god. Holy shit. So when you find something like that and then you look at it and then the sort of insinuation of $1 tank makes you laugh a little bit because it's poking fun of that, but it's also sort of true in the sense that, you know, the U.S. can be sort of reckless with its troops and its uses of their army stuff, right? You know, at some point it can seem that the U.S. can never run out of army supplies, you know, like they're just fuck it, throw more tanks in there, throw more soldiers, throw more armies, or you know, weapons, guns, whatever the fuck. And again, the U.S. is not the only country that does this, right? You know, China and Russia also have powerful militaries that are playing a race with the fucking U.S., right? So is Israel. Israel has an extremely powerful military, right? But that's not the point. The point is, you know, also in terms of war, right? These are highly expensive things, right? Get used like they're sort of candy, right? You know, they're as if like they're priceless, as if, you know, again, as if they are $1. You see what I did there? You know, again, you notice in the work two things, right? It can be treated as a commentary on the last, a commentary on the recent actions of the United States, as a portrayal of the United States still falling into wars, multiple wars over and over, right? They've been going into war since World War II. Let me remember real quick. USA in World War. Well, actually, I need to brush up. Alright, so the US has entered World War I, World War II, right? The Cold War, you had Vietnam, we had Iraq, right? And so, just the history of the United States, is just like, you know, this can be a commentary, the infinite rooms, as if the United States was just infinitely entering into war and conflict upon conflict upon conflict upon conflict, you know, never ending. You know, and when you pair that with the $1, right, you know, it's like just the, you know, how long can you keep entering these conflicts? And this goes out to every military out there, right? Not just, this is just not directed at the United States. It just happens to be a very successful work because of how the United States military and how the United States operates in times of war. You can't separate war from the specific work. We're looking at a tank, right? But you know, this can apply to the Russian army, the Chinese army, the Israeli army, the Egyptian army, the Saudi army, any army out there, you know. And so, pairing, you know, the infinite room, you have, let me zoom in real quick right here. And so you have a barrel on fire, and then desert with tire tracks on it, right, mud, and then just a little tiny shrub, you know, just, as if that's the last remnant of humanity, right? And then you have some really nice texturing on the walls and the ceiling, concrete stuff, you know. And so, again, I think this is for the reasons I explained, you know. I don't think I took a breath there. This is actually quite, I think this might be one of the most successful work. These two are extremely successful out of the whole series of violent. Fiat is violent, and keep in mind we haven't looked at all of them, right? And then here we will move on to a little bit of the more light-hearted work, but I highlight these work for a point I'm going to make towards the end of this little artist breakdown stream type thing, you know. Um, but so this is based on This Is Not a Pipe, which is a famous work, right? It's a surrealist work, sort of, by your name, Margaret. This is the man, he's the dude that painted the hidden dudes with the apple, you know what I'm talking about. You've seen it. Maybe he's not the dudes with the apple, but you know, the dudes with the top hat. I need to brush up on some of my art history, yo. But, right, the treachery of images, that does not concern me, right? But so this is the original image that if you are an art student, I think anywhere, you'll be shown this, right? And so in French, this is hold on, I will butcher this miserably, and I apologize. Cisnist pass in pipe. That was horrible. I apologize. But in English, cisnist pass in pipe, which translates to "this is not a pipe," right? But you're looking at it, it's like, bro, what you mean, fam? This pipe, right? But it was in the beginning of, you know, surrealist works, and sort of you can even tie some, you know, conceptuality to it, like some early conceptuality or early Dadaism to it. We'll get into that in a little bit too, because some of Carlos's work can border. Well, actually, some of Carlos's work is very Dada. It is the Dada, you know. It's the encapsulation of the evolution of the Dada, you know. But so I focus on this because I think it's funny. I think the original "This Is Not a Pipe" painting is actually quite funny, and it's quite smart. It's the first one to do its kind, and so I sort of, at least personally, I equate this to the evolution the same way I equate 64-gallon totter to the Shams fountain, right? And so Margaret, Magritte, this is the first time I actually tried saying his name out loud. Weed's pipe. And so this NFT is inspired by Ernie Magritte's The Treachery of Images, or This Is Not a Weed Pipe. It might be called A Treachery of Images, but you know, we call it This Is Not a Pipe. So the whole purpose behind this is animated GIFs to keep alive the conversation about representational art that Magritte began in 1929, and also showcase how pretty and useful 3D scanner each one of us can be. So, as a person who partakes in the herb, and who enjoys the herb far more than tobacco, this work is just perfect, man, right? It's the evolution of, you know, sort of the Dada and that conceptuality into the digital space, and it's also tying in, you know, the themes of just either recreational drug use, but also it's a signal of the times changing towards wider acceptance and actual differentiation between actual, you know, hard drugs and something like weed, you know. And so I think this work just alone, like, you know, if it makes you laugh, it's successful, and this is actually, it's quite a successful work. It made me laugh. It made me laugh. It's actually pretty cool. It's great. Who owns it? I thought a lot of money. I was like, damn, a lot of smoking some fucking weed up in France, eh? Oh, sorry. I apologize. I had to. It's the typical you mean, and keep up the good work. Yo, thank you. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Yo, thank you. But yeah, I recommend you look into, to those listening, I recommend you look into the series of works and just Rene Magritte's work in general. It's actually quite a 1920s to like 1950s. It's quite an interesting time in development in art. You know, a lot of stuff happened that personally infuriates me as an artist, but also is foundational to where the art world is now. You know, it's impossible to have arrived to where we are now without these people, whether, you know, us as artists like their works now or not. And so after that little bit, we're gonna be talking about the, I'm gonna mispronounce that again, Jesus, the dialectical possibilities of, now I hope to God, hold on, before I search this, I'm pretty sure it's Japanese just because of um, the sort of artwork. I'm gonna Google that as well because I'm not familiar with the correct term for fixing the sculpture in such way. Kintsugi, that's the actual name for it. And so this is a form of fixing broken pottery in Japan where I believe, I mean, the videos I've seen on YouTube now and the videos you'll find on YouTube is people will like fix the breaks and then use either gold paint or gold leaf to put the stuff on. But you know, it's stuff that's broke. It's a pot. You know, it's some pottery that gets broken, which you then fix. And instead of trying to get rid of the cracks, you highlight the cracks by making them gold, right? And so you imbue it with new life, right? And new use, but also highlighting the damage that has been done to it, and then thematically, right? In a sense, if you want to tie this to like human experience, right? It's like getting broken, and then you get back up, right? You get down, and then you get back up, right? This thing, after being broken, has gone back to its use case, to its form, be it damaged or non. You know, it still bears the markings of the damage it's gone through, but it's now made better, stronger, and in the cases of Kintsugi, right, even more beautiful through the damage, right? And so I think, um, now I compared 64-gallon totter to Duchamp's fountain, right? But this is Duchamp's fountain, right? Armut, that's Duchamp's fake name that he came up with. He just came up with that. He was like, fuck it, Armut. 2009. Is that the actual? So if you quickly search up fountain by Duchamp, the date on it is 1917, right? So he's changed the date on there, right? 2009, to sort of modernize it a little bit, right? Um, but also it's sort of adding a little new addition. But before we get into that, let's read the description. So, whatever Kintsugi, golden joinery, can teach us about dialects should be used to understand that the role of crypto will play in the wider history of art. Ideally, this work shall always be exhibited next to infinite gesture. Infinite gesture, which is, hold on, quickly, let me see. Infinite gesture, where you at, fountain? Okay, and so we're going to look at both. And so we're now looking at so infinite gesture is a simulation of Duchamp's fountain breaking. And so it says infinite gesture dropping of a fountain, the virtual and conceptual deconstruction of a ready-made, ideally, right? And so essentially what happens in the life work, in like the sort of the story or the narrative of the work is, you know, Carlos takes the concept of the ready-made, right, which Duchamp established. And if you're not aware of what the ready-made is you as an artist finding something that's already created and either trying to evolve it in some way, right? So it's a painting that you found in a thrift shop, and then you added a few figures in it, right? You're utilizing the ready-made, or it's say you're a painter and then you stick some fabric with a cool pattern that you just found on the street, right? Those prices are quite expensive. Yeah, man, those prices are. That's what happens when when your work is essentially really really good, you know, both conceptually and like aesthetically, right? Because this sort of work is like, um, there is nothing else like it sort of being produced in that specific sort of critique, right? You don't see a lot of work talking about, you know, for example, like fiat and violence, specifically focusing on, you know, the US dollar, for example. With Robness's work, you see a lot of focus on the data and Duchamp's work, right? But also, Duchamp has become an influential figure, right, in the space, to where if you pull works by him effectively, you sort of can command that price. You know, it's they are expensive, like for me and you, right? Like I could never fucking afford a Carlos piece ever in my life. Probably, I hope one day. Well, no, actually, you know what? One day we're gonna get there. One day, me and you, Jaheim, we're gonna get there. And also King Jesus. I don't know if he's still here, but all of us, we're gonna get there. We're gonna get there. Um, but it's sort of work that legitimately is serious enough that I personally could see this going for 100 ether, 200 ether, even 1,000 ether a few years from now. It's that influential, right? And it's good that you bring up the prices. Yeah, yeah, we'll get there, bro. We'll get there. And it's good that you bring up the prices, right? Because looking at the space now, right? We haven't fully seen the cream of the crop rise to the top, right? If we're talking about the NFT space as like a glass, right? That's still happening now, right? And so Carlos is one of those artists that's essentially rising to the top. And given that he is, I believe, an artist who resides in Mexico through Puerto Rico, so he might a Puerto Rican, I believe, maybe born, and then yeah, right. The pricing is justified, and it's like, and I'll tell you why it could go even higher, right? And so essentially, looking at this sort of critique, right? This heavy political critique that's present in his work, it's extremely reminiscent of this right here, right? The Mexican muralist movement, which if you haven't checked it out, I recommend you go check it out. To anybody who's listening, you go check it out in comparison to Carlos's work, and you're gonna see what I mean, right? Um, People like Diego Rivera right here, and some other people. I'm blanking out on some of their names. Um, or I think Jorge Gonzalez. There is a few household names in the Mexican muralist movement that essentially their work evolved as quite aesthetic, right? um, Pleasant to the eyes, right? It's stylized in a way, right? It has its own sort of style. This is well, this might be one actually. Um, Either through figures or colors, Um, if you're curious, Diego Rivera, I believe I think he's the one that married. Yeah, he's Frida Kahlo's husband. Um, right, but this is the sort of style that you can see in the Mexican muralist movement, and it's aesthetically very pleasing. But also, the work has evolved as a very heavy-handed critique of politics and sometimes even normal culture. Like legitimately, some of the works that you see coming out of the muralist movements, the Mexican muralist movement at its time, right? Like during, what you call it? I already have it. During 1910, rival some of the identity-based works that talk about oppression now. I really mean it. Like some of the etchings from like the 20s and the 50s are talking about the Aboriginal, like some of the struggles of the Aboriginal tribes in Mexico. Like you've not like, and it's like you equate it to some of the works that are coming out now discussing, um, Aboriginal, what do you call it? Like some of the treatment of Aboriginal people in the United States or in Canada, for example, right? And so it's very early in that sense, and it's very effective, and it's foundational, right? Um, Dude, right. It's like you look at it and you're like, okay, no, like this man's just fucking with like actual serious themes that, like the Mexican muralist movement is tied to Mexico, but its influences creep through Latin America, like South America, and even now, right? Like everybody in an art history class knows about Diego Rivera. You get taught about him. Some people like to shit on him, because he treated Frida Kahlo like shit, and he did. Um, but his art, it's still heavy-handed on the politics, right? Discussions of data, like either just like normal life conditions to like the heaviest critiques of communism and fascism, like, right? And so, like, I remember at one point there was a painting by one Mexican muralist that said, fascists and communists burning in hell arguing together, or something like that. And I was like, how is this produced in this time? Oh my god, right? And so personally looking at it, Carlos's work is a direct evolution of that sort of work. That heavy-handed political critique, right? Um, if we go to his other page, right? I don't know if we see a lot of there is one work that is inherently personal, right? And it's a Day of the Dead work, which I believe is up here, right? Dia de Muertos, that's Day of the Dead. Um, but right, some of this work are so conceptual that I'm like, damn, bro, no fucking way, right? And I also look forward because, like you said, Jaheim, right? Like these prices are pretty good, and they've allowed Carlos to now survive full time as an artist. And so, imagine the possibilities of Carlos being able to talk about his personal culture, right? Memories as a child. Talk about inspirations from his mom. Because he's mentioned his mom quite a bit on Twitter, right? And so, in a place where like culture can run so deep, right? And um, you have such a history, man. The context is bound, right? And the evolution of the work is bound to be amazing. I mean, like, look at like this is actually, I think it's fucking cool, right? And also, again, I bring up the point that you're not seeing anybody utilize the ready-made, right? Utilize politics in such a way. It's very faint in the space. Um, Personally, I think because a lot of people are afraid to talk about the actual politics, but Carlos knows. He knows that foundational art at the time, right? Because we're in an extremely foundational time and an extremely pivotal time, right? Um, you actually gotta talk your talk, right? You gotta talk about what you believe in and put your thoughts out there, and he's doing it, right? He's unafraid, you know. Like, man, it's I legitimately that was gonna be my tweet at the end of the day after I finished this. I was gonna tweet him. I was gonna tweet out to him comparing his work to the work from this movement, just because it's like, where else are you getting these critiques? Like Robness did it. Robness has critiques of copyright and stuff, and he got yeeted off of Super Rare, which sucks. But other than Robness, you have um, some of Trevor Jones's paintings. A few other. I'm mispronouncing his name. Is it Fabio? Right. Some of their works aren't political. You have Osanachi, who's talking about identity, but you haven't. Man, this is work coming directly right out of the birthplace of this. The themes are bound to make their way. It's I rest my case. um, and I legitimately look forward to the future of Carlos's work. Both personal, political, and cultural. Just because, man, like, the critiques alone are fucking insane. And yeah, no, that's all I got. I am at loss of words. Um, yeah, I legitimately, to those listening, go follow him on his Twitter. His work is amazing. Do you have any of his pieces? No, man. I wish. Think I need to scout a few. I wish I owned some of his shit. I would actually love to own some of his Fiat pieces or any of his Duchamp pieces. Um, even this, like a Molotov cocktail, right? It's like, I just, even a piece like this, man. Right, because of Molotov. Well, here, this will be the last piece I dissect, but I think it would be cool, and so. This is when he says, I never realized I've done an animated piece for the Fiat is Violence series, or I've used the Russian ruble as a texture, so that's the Russian ruble. So I had to do both in a single piece, and of course I had to use a Molotov cocktail, which was invented by Finns when fighting the Russians during the Winter War. It's also using. Yeah, no, both of us. One day we'll get one of his works, both of us, right? And like, man, like, exactly, like, look at a work like this, right? And so, um, are Finns, these might be Finnish, I'm not too sure, right? But Fiat is Violence in the sense that, like, at least in a work like this, you can view it as a system utilizing Molotovs against a civilization, right? But it's also, how many times you've heard of Molotovs being used in protests by people against, like, oppressive regimes, right? And so his work is able to go both ways. It's that effective. Um, and it's like, I think it's his work is as foundational. you know, it's like you have Robness is like Duchamp, and you have Carlos is like Rivera. You know, that's yeah. Well, I'll um, I will I will end it there because I think I can't top that honestly. Yeah, go look at Carlos's work. It's amazing. It's legitimately fucking amazing. I keep saying I look forward to the future, but it's like you guys don't understand. You know, for an artist from the third world to actually be able to financially support themselves just as an artist is great. And for an artist to be doing this with this level of critique and quality of execution in their work, just man, just makes your brain just run with ideas of what they can do in the future. And so, um, to those listening again, go drop Carlos a follow on his Twitter. Um, he is also active on Twitter, so you can talk with him and get news of his latest drop. Yeah, man, Jaheim, you gotta check his work out. Hopefully, I don't know. Maybe I'll try to see if I'm able to get in contact with him and have him on for an artist talk, but I'm not too sure. Yeah, we'll see about it. But go check out his work to those listening and going through videos to watch them. Well, you're an expert. Keep doing these. Yo, thank you. That's the whole point I brought when I came to Metakey. I was like, yo, let's do some art stuff. The NFT scene needs it, you know, because we can't keep spending fucking $50 million on fucking profile projects, you know. It's time to spend them fucking $50 million on some art, you know. If other people are gonna be spending that, right? Why not have the Metakey community be the smart ones and invest and spend their money in art, you know. But yeah, and also um, to those listening and Jaheim, yo, thanks for coming to thanks for tuning in to the stream and talking. Tomorrow we're gonna be having sort of an artist talk with Factillions. I mentioned that in the beginning of the stream. They're having a little. They work for a creative collective over on Twitter. So if you go right here to creative collective, hold on, where you? I follow them. Hold on, give me 1 second. So if you go to right here, we'll see at CC_NFT. They work for this, and so tomorrow, I believe at 6:30 p.m. EDT, they'll Factillions, who works for Creator Collective, will be coming on to talk about their art competition, which I recommend those to the artists in the Metakey to submit your works. You actually do not realize the amount of non-artists that apply to art competitions and actually win just because of the lack of artists applying. It is crazy. The person who told me so were the people who told us this were our art professors, because colleges and universities will be like, we're having a competition for our sciences calendar, and science students will apply to it because they get to win some money, and art students will be like, I don't need that, fucking I don't like competitions. And the level of work is actually it varies by a lot, like even quality. So to those listening, apply. And if you want to wait for more info, tomorrow we'll be talking about it. Tomorrow we'll be asking questions. I should also say I am a judge. I'm a judge in the competition. I don't know for which stage though. Do you create your own art by chance? Yes, I do. If you go to my, I recently made it onto Foundation, and so if you go to foundation.app/Anubis3100, you'll see some of my work there. It's huge. Well, I guess that's the metadata, but it's yeah. I meant on Hicket Nunk OpenSea, some on Rebel, even though Rebel is not that active, and Foundation now. But yeah, this my work is on Foundation. Just if you want to check it out, just go to my Twitter. I post there. I try to post there regularly. But yeah, so if to those artists, check out Creator Collective. They have a chance to win some money also, which is always exciting for artists. You can use those for art supplies, oil paints and such. We'll be asking all the questions, and we'll also be having them on, and I believe one of the creator of Creator Collective on Monday, as a way to talk to the creator himself. But yeah, thanks, Jaheim. I appreciate it. And yeah, to hit me up on Twitter if you're curious. We'll talk about art stuff. And to those listening, if you're ever curious about art stuff, hit me up on Twitter at Anubis_3100. I am active there. I'll respond to all your art questions if I can, and if I can't, I'll probably try to find a reference and get it to you. And also, again, like stated before, the little necro-capitalism thing will be posted in the Discord for those who are curious to read it. I don't know if you'll be able to read it for free. I hope so. If not, it will just point you towards some keywords that you can search. But yeah, to those listening, and thank you guys for coming. Yo, Jaheim. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Thanks for coming and chatting with me today. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Yeah, and feel free to tag me in Discord. In the Discord, I'll respond. I just been busy with art stuff, but yeah, you guys have a good one, and thanks for joining us. Peace out.